This is Unrendered, and Senator the Honorable Jomo Thomas is my guest on this edition. We're into the final segment of this program. Jomo, time flies, and we're hitting the last segment here. I wanted to move a bit now on some other issues. Some of them are, what we may want to call the global economy and how St. Vincent compares with, the rest of the world. Let's take the IMF report, and certainly a preliminary report. I don't think they've finished, their full narrative. But the IMF gave an early indication, or preliminary indication, that certainly wasn't a damning report of the performance.
Was not.
Okay, but I also want to make the point that it was not a report that says we are.
Well, it's difficult to have a report like that.
Right.
In this
so I think that
But
point
I believe that a lot of people were surprised by the IMF report. In fact, the IMF report confirmed a few things which the government had been saying. The IMF confirmed that, look, there's going to be some growth.
1.5%, I think they're...
In the US, it's 1.6%. They have a $20 trillion economy. People forget these things. They have a $20 trillion economy. In the US this year, the projections are that the economy is going to grow less than 2%. It's the rare situation. India, China, Brazil, Mozambique, that grows above 5%.
But the IMF did point out some stress factors, if you want to call it.
Well, they're evident stress factors.
But let's deal with some of them. I mean, the
disasters.
Right. But I'm talking about as it relates to government's ability to meet its obligations. The debt owed to the private sector, for example. I mean, having said that, we know that the private sector to income taxes owe I happen to know that it's a significant amount, and more than far more than what the government owes. But the fact that the government owes money is a major problem, because that in itself can be holding up people's cash flow, etc., and holding back the economy. Now that is definitely a stress factor.
Yes.
How is, and I don't know if you're the right person to ask, I should be asking the Minister of Finance, Prime Minister himself, how is he going to address that? Well,
part of the things that a government has to do, again, I go back to tell you that politics is the art of the possible. You have to think, okay, I owe this person $1. I may be able to pay them 25 cents here because I want to do some roads here. I want to do this over here. I want to get some monies to do something else here. It is part and parcel of governing in a very resource-starved economy. It is unfortunate that people are owed, and you would want to pay those people who you owe because it may help to spur the economy on even further. But you can't, on one hand, say that the government is broke, and clearly government finances are tight, and then on the other hand tell government, well, look, pay everybody that you owe. It can't work that way. Those are contradictory kind of arguments.
The opposition speaks, addresses the point is that there is fiscal indiscipline, basically.
And where's the evidence of the fiscal indiscipline?
Well, I'm just saying what they use.
No, but I'm saying what
recently, Mr. Yusuf has been talking about the government officers having simple meetings and the catering.
But that can't be a serious argument.
The catering
is what? A catering. Let's take $1,000 for a meeting at 52 meetings. That's $52,000. Now, what dent would $52,000 make if you take it over an entire year?
Yeah, but
I mean, those things are trivialities.
Yeah, but they may be saying it's symbolic of the general malaise in terms of.
But why is that? I doubt there's any place in the system at all where a meeting runs for 2 hours and they have big lunches. I doubt there's any place in the service where that happens. Doubt.
And then they brought up the issue of the Governor General's vehicle and the Prime Minister's vehicle.
Look,
maybe not so much the Governor General's vehicle, but the Prime Minister's
there's a price, there's a price we have to pay. I remember Oliver Wendell Holmes talked about the price of civilization. I mean, if we think it's sexy for the Governor General to drive in an old broken down vehicle, well, so be it. If we think it is good, because I know Mr. Eustace talked about when he took over, the car was dilapidated, a Cholapi. If he thinks that's good, well, cool. I don't think that's good. If people know in St. Vincent that the Prime Minister vehicles are in heavy usage, that they do a lot of mileage, and somebody's vehicle that may do 16,000 miles per year, I am sure the Prime Minister's vehicle probably does 50,000 miles per year or more. If the vehicle is running and you change the vehicle, because the Prime Minister has to get a proper vehicle. It doesn't matter that Ralph Gonsalves, ULP Prime Minister, any Prime Minister should have a vehicle that is functioning properly. And there comes a time when you change the vehicle to give optimum performance. This is why when Obama went in to the White House, there was a new Air Force One, because the Air Force One, the presidential plane, had become old.
Yes.
So they scrapped the one that the previous president had, and they provided Obama with a new Air Force One. That is the way you govern in a modern world.
The impact of the loss of Petrocarib, should it happen?
But who said that Petrocarib?
Hold on. Let me rephrase, because I don't want to say it as if it's a fait accompli. It's going to happen. I'm not saying that at all. But certainly, there is some measure of exposure, as there would be in any other financial arrangement.
Before there was Petrocarib, we had to pay all that we had to pay. Petrocarib came in at a crucial time because it allowed us to pay only part. I think once the price of fuel is over $50, we pay 50%, and then we put the other 50% in a 20-year loan at 1%. Now, if we were to lose that, evidently we would have even more tighter financial difficulties, because we'd have to pay all of that monies up front. But I don't know why there's this big thing about Petrocarib and Venezuela, because all oil producing countries are suffering from the same problem with falling prices. The thing with Venezuela is that Venezuela has one of the largest oil fields in the world. So the question of Venezuela providing the fuel is not a problem at all. The question is Venezuela continuing to provide the fuel at the concession that they're given. But even if Venezuela is now, I saw recently last week where the oil fluctuated between $66 and $72 per barrel. All it means is that we are owing Venezuela less money, because whereas we got the loan for, let's say, if the price of oil was 120, you're buying less. So I don't know why that would bring the I don't know why it would bring the Petrocarib agreement into
but I think what the antagonists are saying is that, look, you've got Venezuela's economy, which may reel because of downward spiral in oil prices, and if that reels, if that spirals down, then they may not be in a position to extend those sorts of facilities, those long-term loan facilities. And I think that's the point people are making. Certainly,
but if the oil comes down, the facility would be even less. It would be small. In other words, suppose the oil is now $55. Let's say the oil goes down to fuel goes down to $55 per barrel. It means that you would pay on $50, and the loan would only be $5 on each barrel.
So, Jomo, let me ask you directly: do you think that the opposition, because they are the ones that are, and the proponents of the opposition, they're the ones who are looking and highlighting this so-called exposure in the Petrocarib arrangement. Do you think that this is pure politics? Well, realizing maybe that the Petrocarib arrangement has given the ULP administration, the government rather, some fiscal space, as it were.
Yes.
And that space is working in favor of...
But how so? It works in favor of the country.
Well, it does. But
it doesn't work in favor of the ULP.
But that's what I'm asking you, is this just raw politics?
It is raw politics. And look, If we take Petro, well, the opposition leader has said he would unsign. So I don't know if he were to win an election, if he's going to say, look, we no longer want this concession that we're getting from Venezuela. He may well say so, but I doubt very much. But it is the kind of opposition politics, which to me is not well thought out. And it's the same thing that happened on the certification issue.
Right.
It's clearly just opposition politics. Because where Mr. Eustace said that this thing did not work, the paper it was written on. What happens if he becomes the prime minister? Would he say, okay, you can no longer, is he going to doubt what was happening, what is currently happening at the community college? In the same way, is he going to do away with Petro-Carib and say, okay, oil price is $90 a barrel, so we would do away with that and pay the entire $90?
Pay the money up front.
It doesn't,
now, I want to contrast that, or I want to compare it to, and we're talking about the areas of fiscal space that different administrations are given, compared to when bananas had preferential status.
Yeah.
Clearly, that was something that benefited the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it lasted for how long it lasted.
Yes.
So I'm suggesting here that maybe, and I'm putting ammunition in your army really, the fact that in those days, bananas provided that buffer between hard times and stable times in very much the same way that Petro-Carib might be doing now. In large measure, I'm not saying it's the only thing that keeps the economy afloat. I'm not saying that. But I suppose one can argue here that the opposition in its day of preferential status of bananas
would have benefited from a period of preferential.
Right, would have benefited from that. And maybe it would have been irresponsible politics for the then opposition to wish for the preferential status.
And that is the point I started with at the top of this thing about what happens in terms of policy conversations and policy discussion. That the politics strung out the issue. The politics stifles the policy. And that should never be, because you have to present as though you are really, if you're presenting as government, you have to present a policy that is holistic, that is not, you don't want a situation where politics is stiff-arming policy, because you're going to end up with problems. If you have a discussion on Petro-Carib, you start from the premise that Petro-Carib has been a boon for not just St. Vincent, for all of the countries of CARICOM.
Do you think there's some ideological confusion here, though? Do you think that because Hugo Chavez and Castro and the other countries that form this pact, this ALBA pact and so on, are left of center, do you think that ideology is getting in the way here?
Well, that may be. That is why the opposition might have said that Mr. Eustace might have said that he would unsign, because it is with Venezuela, the whole question of what.
Because if you're being given that same arrangement with the United States.
And this is why Patrick Manning, when he was the prime minister, when the whole thing came on stream, said, look, if we did not have oil, we would have taken it too.
Right.
Because it just makes good sense.
And would it have been more palatable, say, if we were
getting it from the U.S.?
Getting it from the U.S.?
Well, you can be sure that we may not have gotten the kind of
no, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, do you think the opposition would have been more comfortable had we had the same arrangement?
They probably, more than likely, they would have been. More than likely. The unfortunate thing is that the United States is that generous. I mean, we had a devastation that took 17% of our GDP. And the last time I checked, the United States gave us $50,000 in response to a 17% devastation of GDP. So we have to, in our geopolitics and our understanding and presentation of issues, we have to understand, we have to go far and wide and see who would give us $1 million here. Because smallness work in our favor, you know. $1 million may go a long way in St. Vincent. $1 million may not go so far in Trinidad or Jamaica or Guyana, or in Texas, or in Indonesia. So if we can get $1 million here, we get $500,000 here. Somebody give us a fire truck. Another person give us 4
it has
vehicles.
Greater impact
it has greater impact on a smaller economy. So we have to reach out. And I think we can't do it based on ideology. And we can't do it based on opposition politics or simply based on whatever idiosyncrasy we may have.
Jomo, I cannot get through all the points I wanted to get through because at the end of the program I wanted to talk about the Clay Valley Housing Project, which I know you are
yes. Well, I've made statements.
Yes.
I've made statements on that.
I wanted
on
to touch the
radio.
bigger bigs issue, which you may or may not know a few things about. But I'll throw them out there, but we cannot continue. We're at the end of our program. It was a pleasure having you. And
it's a delight to be here.
I would certainly want you back as the election fever, as the pitch gets higher, and you're in the chores of battle.
Well, I would try to ensure that I don't catch the fever, but I certainly would be in the thick of things.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
This has been another edition of Unrendered. My guest was Senator the Honorable Jomo Thomas, who is going to contest the South Leeward constituency on a ULP ticket. I'm Tony Regisford, and do join us the next time on Unrendered Airs.